What's up, guys? Welcome to the official Godhood Comics podcast, the Godhood. I'm your host, comic book writer, creator, and publisher, Tyler Martin. I'm also the founder and CEO of Godhood Comics, where we produce high-quality, Black-owned comic books, all right? So let's get into today's episode. Super important episode for us here at Godhood, and certainly for you guys watching, all right? Now, we talked about in our last video, valuing your IP, setting your price points, making sure that you are your number one fan. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today in this episode, which is about why you haven't made at least $100K from your comic book project. Full disclaimer here. We are only engaging our comic creators or comicpreneurs who are interested in scaling their comic books, interested in making money from their comic books, interested in monetizing their creations. Now, we talked about on our last video how just creating comic books is essential to the survival of our community. So this is not for you guys who just like to have a good time and are super passionate about just making comics because you want to get your work out here. We're only talking to those who really want to make a living and probably do this full time. A couple of months ago, we had posted this on our Twitter page, and it just went viral. It was just like, wow, really, a lot of people took a lot from this, and I thought it would be a perfect episode to share this information here with you guys as a part of our YouTube channel. So it's probably going to be one of our shortest YouTube channels. We'll see, but let's get into it. This is why you have not made $100K from your comic book. And it just talks about helpful tips to use to increase your reach and financial gain in making comics. That's all we try to do, guys, is inspire creators to do this full time. To learn how to market and manage their comic book projects to garner a financial gain. It's our hope and dream that every comic book creator make a boatload of money from just making comic books, because it is possible. It is being done. I'm doing it, and several other comic book creators and Black-owned publishers are doing this. So here we go. Number one is you just haven't built your fan base, right? So whether you're new to the industry or haven't quite figured it out, you just are having problems getting loyal customers that can make your job a lot easier. Now, what that really means is at the end of the day, your IP is going to sell itself and speak for itself. It's going to attract a loyal fan base, not just your IP, but your overall comic book publisher or your own brand. It's going to attract a certain type of people. These are your consumers. This is your target audience. And so they are critical in getting you to the $50,000 mark, the $100,000 mark, or hell, for a lot of us, even the $5,000 mark. All right, so I want to make sure that you're finding your audience and you are connecting with them, making sure every interaction is personable. Everybody wants to feel like they're needed. And so it's up to you to show your audience that you do need them and that you're here because of them. Number two, you aren't active enough on social media. All right. So social media has a lot of success in every industry on a scale that has never been seen before. So it goes the same for comic books, all right? Make sure you're actively on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok. Guys, the algorithm is against us, all right? All of these social media sites are fighting for dominance. They're fighting for attention. They're fighting to be number one. And so in that fluctuation, the algorithm is really not showing anybody your work, right? And you're making a post and you've got 100,000 followers and you're only getting 10 likes, all right? Or you may have 500 followers and you're only getting 1 like. That's because followers are not seeing your content, right? Because these social media networks are valuing monetary creators versus, the smaller guys. They're not going to show your work when they are making millions of dollars off of this one creator. All right. So just make sure. That's why it's so important for number one. That's why number one is so important, making sure that you are connecting with your audience one-on-one, where you don't even need to be posting on social media just to get their attention, because your loyal fan base, they know where you move. They know where you're at. They know when your books are dropping. Okay. So make sure you're engaging. Make sure you're on social media. You should be posting at a minimum of 3 times a week on social media. And it's easy. Find apps like Canva and your website hosting base and other apps where you can schedule content where you just don't have to post. A lot of our content is just scheduled, where the algorithm is going to post it for us. We have things set up where, it can post for you, where I'm not, oh man, I forgot to post. I need to post. So take advantage of the technology, because it is here to serve you. If you know how to use it, if you research, if you're on YouTube University and you're doing the things you need to do, make sure you are utilizing technology. Guys, TikTok is huge. We just got on our TikTok. Make sure you follow us at Godhood Comics. This is the number one social media platform right now, and more comic book creators are flocking to it to showcase their content and their creations. But more importantly, as we talked about, we'll always go back to number one a lot. TikTok is allowing you to really get personable with your supporters. I mean, it's really a one-on-one, authentic platform where people can really see the behind the scenes and just your day-to-day as a comic book creator. So definitely recommend TikTok. All right. And this is number 3. Now, this is going to be a very controversial statement, because we catch a lot of flack for it all the time. Again, disclaimer, we are not talking about comic book creators who just love making comic books and putting their thought to paper. All art is art, right? Everything that develops in the mind and goes on a physical format is art. Art is very subjective. We know this. We are only talking to people and comic book creators who want to monetize and scale their comic books. And there's a way that the market will allow you to do that. All right. So number 3 of why you have not made $100,000 from your comic book is you don't make quality a priority. I'll say it again. Listen, I'm so big on quality. If you know me, our supporters, my colleagues, they know how much quality, how important quality here, quality at Godhood is. It's super important. It's one of the things that made us grow so fast, I think. Just putting out amazing artwork, amazing character developments and storytelling. And so comics can get expensive. So it's understandable that a lot of creators cut corners with art and editing and logos. But remember, what you put out is what you're going to get back. And if you want to make a living off of comic books, make sure you put quality first, because your fan base and your supporters are going to know. We talked about this in the last video. They're going to know how you feel about this project. The proof is always in the pudding. And so if you're paying $15 a page for a comic book, how are you expecting someone to take that seriously? Right? You get what you pay for, and that is of the utmost importance when you're creating a comic book. Don't be ashamed to step back, set a reasonable budget, take some time away, and get the proper fund to get quality of work. If you put quality first, man, you're going to be so shocked how rewarded you are at the end of it all. Low quality comic books, I think, are just a waste of money. As far as being a comicpreneur, you're trying to make money off of it, because whether you're doing quality or not, it's hard making a comic book, and you're putting all this time, sweat, and tears into something that's not going to garner much reward, not even financially. Just want to make sure that you feel good about your comic book, and that's what quality is about. That's why quality from the get-go is super, super, super beneficial to you garnering your reward. And that's what I think comic booking should be about, is making sure that you're rewarded for the time and effort and blood and sweat and tears that you will put into this project. So go quality or go home. Number 4, you aren't supporting other creators in your industry. As big as it is, comic booking is small, and having a reputation of backing and supporting your fellow creators goes a long way when it's time for your project to go live. Guys, comic booking is a community, right? Networking is super, 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 super important for when you're doing anything that you're putting out to the public. And so too is creating a comic book, making sure you're supporting Kickstarters, that you're sharing content, that you're liking videos, right? Commenting on pictures, that you are actively and visibly supporting other creators, because when you support other creators, I promise you, they're going to support you too. They're going to return that favor of liking and sharing and commenting. So you want to make sure that you are making it known that you are in this person's court, that you love their work, that you're supporting their work. This is going to come full circle when it's time for you to do a Kickstarter, which we'll do a video about Kickstarter. I'm so excited to do our Kickstarter video and fundraising video. When it's time for you to raise funds, when it's time for when your book is done, when it's time to promote it, when it's time to publish it, when it's time to sell it, these other creators are going to be your first purchasers. It won't be your family. It won't be your friends. It's going to be the creators that you also supported. So never forget to hit like, subscribe, comment on other comic book creators' properties. Very, very important. Number 5, you haven't built a brand. We talk about all the time the difference between marketing and branding. And branding, very, 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 very important to creating comic book. I know I say everything is important because it pretty much is. Now, a single comic book is short term, but your brand is long term. Establishing your why and communicating that to your supporters and colleagues is essential to being successful. Why are you doing this? Why are you creating comic books? Why should we support you? Why? Branding and establishing your brand and making sure that your supporters know your brand and can distinguish it from others is going to take you a very, very long way. Make sure you're establishing your brand. Number 6, which is one of the biggest issues that I see, is you aren't viewing it as a business. Very simple. You're not making money because you're not viewing it as a business. For some, making comics is a hobby. We talk about comic creators and comicpreneurs all the time. That's okay. And if that's you, boom, cool. These tips are not for you. But if you want to make money, make sure you have a small understanding of how running a business works. Financials, marketing, promotion, publication, etc. Everyone's not a natural. You may not know these things, but YouTube is essential. We call it YouTube University. Getting on, learning how you can really monetize from your comic book and setting it on a business budget, and learning what profit margins are and how to meet financial goals and how to reinvest and how to purchase ads and all of these things. If you're not viewing this as a business, it's going to show. It's going to show. You're not going to make the sales. We talk about pricing and valuing your IP. If this is a business for you, you know that if it's costing you $5 to print a single issue, then you need to sell that book for over $10. Right, to regain a profit. And then, it goes into much more detail in running a business and establishing that. So make sure that if you're in this for monetization, that you have some kind of business savvy, or you're learning some kind of business savvy, so you can learn how to grow and expand and scale your comic book. Number 8, very, very, very important. You don't think you can. You don't think you can make $100,000 from your comic book. It's a hard craft to master, and it'll take a lot of conviction and confidence to break the mold and make it work for you. Believing in your stories is key to success. You are your number one fan. If you don't believe in your IP, how can you expect anybody else to? It just won't work. You have to, at the end of the day, you have to be making comic books for you. And we say, of course, we want everyone to love your work. Of course, we want them to enjoy it. Of course, we want them to come back. But you have to make sure you are your number one satisfied customer. If you don't think you can do it, you won't be able to do it. And unfortunately, I see a lot of creators, and we have a lot of meetings and calls with a lot of our creators that I mentor, and they just don't believe they can do it. And at that moment, they've already defeated themselves. At that moment, they've already become so disconnected to what they really want to do, which is monetize this thing, that it's too late. It's too late. So believe in your IP, believe in your story, believe in your characters, like literally live it. I say, if I cut you open, you should be bleeding your comic book. Be your number one fan. Number 9, you aren't consistent. Comic booking is a long and tedious process, and not for the faint of heart. It takes years and years to get it done and to get it right. If you aren't in it for the long run, this will greatly impact your chances of financial success. We see people all the time get into the industry and think that overnight they're going to garner success. They're going to garner fandom, that they're going to get the following, that they're going to get the TV adaptation, that they're going to get the fame and the exposure. And that's not how it works. Comics are the most long and tiresome forms of literature as far as creating them. You have to set a 5-year, 10-year goal. I promise you, if you follow all these tips and do all these things that we're saying in this video and set a 5-year plan, you will have seen $100,000 from your comic book process. No brainer. No brainer, no brainer, no brainer. It's the longevity, going over quality and not quantity, and making sure that you are establishing yourself as someone who is here to stay, someone who is not going anywhere. And you will be successful in this industry. Number 10, you aren't thinking outside the box. It's true. Every story has been done before, but never by you. Make sure you are breaking the mold with your stories and doing things that others around you aren't. Comics is the one game where it pays to be all for self. Bring the heat. Bring the heat. Comic books is the most expressive form of literature. You can literally do anything. Visually, you can literally do anything. Make sure you're thinking outside the box and that your story is entertaining and interesting and pulls your readers in. There are so many stories that have been done, so many stories that have been created, but never by you. And what that means is you can bring something to every genre, every story. If you want to make $100,000 or more, you need a story that hasn't been done before in the way that you can do it. So when you're outlining and you're starting off, every idea you've ever had came from somewhere. How can you expand upon that? Right. A perfect example. We knew we had one of our mentees. He wanted to do a comic book about black wizards, and he was a huge fan of Harry Potter. And my advice to him was, what did Harry Potter not do? What's something that in that series, books or movies, that they did not do? How can you take that one thing and really blow it up? And then there you have the differentiation between Harry Potter and your story about black wizards. Bring the heat. All right. Number 11. And finally, the most interesting one, and the one we're most passionate about, is you're selling your stuff for cheap. You're selling your stuff for too cheap. You can't make $100,000 because you're selling it for too cheap. You aren't the big two. They can sell their books for $2.99 and move millions in product. So they're getting millions of dollars. You can't. You don't have access to that many people. Independent comic books should never be less than $6. Never less than $5, but really never less than $6. You should never be selling a single page standard comic book with 20 to 24 pages for under $6. That's even low. I could go and say you should never sell it for under 10, but some people are not at that level and you may not be comfortable with pushing that type of product. It's all about the product, the quality, and what level you are as a creator. We don't sell books under $10. You'll never see us selling books under $10. It's just not appropriate, and it's just not beneficial to the scale of what it is that we're trying to do. No one goes into the Gucci store and looks around and says, this is too expensive. You need to lower your price. No, the price is the price. You either pay it or you don't. Stop selling your IP cheap. It's hurting you, it's hurting your brand, and it's hurting your growth. So like I said, we told you this is going to be a very short video. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Also, make sure you are subscribed to our Patreon. Guys, Patreons help us keep the lights on here at Godhood Comics, meaning if we have a bad week or a bad month with sales, then that we can kind of fall back on your support, and you can get on there and you'll see all types of exclusive content, never before seen content, one-on-one, more personable message there on our Patreon. We are expanding it. We are growing. We're going to be making that our primary source of information concerning Godhood Comics. So make sure you subscribe to that Patreon. As always, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere you think Godhood is, we're there. All right. So this has been another interesting Godhood Comics podcast. We will see you next week. Tyler out.